Hello everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn and I'm here with fantastic Johanna. Hi Johanna, how are you doing?
Very, very good. Thank you. And yourself, Flynn?
I'm good, thank you. We had so much fun on Tuesday. We're going to do it again today here on Thursday. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are streaming and creating from today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we would like to say hello to everybody in chat. Frank, Festus, Steve is in the house. Great to see you, Steve. Rin is here. Kendall's here. What's up, everybody? Great to have you hanging out with us. We're going to be here for a fun hour. I hope you like color. Because we're going to be talking color. I love your background, by the way, Johanna. You're changing it precisely for what the stream is going to be. Very good. Now every time you're on, the pressure is on. I made that mistake with some of our team meetings. So with our team meetings, I always have a green screen, so I keep changing the background. And now whenever I have the same one, everyone's like, "Oh, you haven't changed your background." So yeah, the pressure is on.
Goodness me.
I know. But yeah, Sophie Eleanor's here in the chat as well. What's up? Jessica T too. Oh my gosh, it's a party. Great to have you hanging out with us. Everybody's in the house. If you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, come over to Behance so we can see you. If you comment, say hello. We've got some interactive things as well, so some audience participation happening today. You can tell us your favorite color and all that sort of thing. But yeah, Joe, do you want to give us a bit of a recap of what we did maybe on Tuesday and then kind of segue that into what we're going to be into today?
Absolutely. Let's go. So, as we all know, this is a Bookmark Design 101 with Joe. And we are sort of the theme of the stream and everything was to commemorate and celebrate International Literacy Day. So basically, this year it's about literacy for a human-centered recovery, narrowing the digital divide. So really, in the times that we're currently living in, focusing on making sure that we sort of are bringing everyone along up with us. That made no sense. But
Makes
focusing
sense.
on the thing that, we all understand each other, and that understanding, which, sometimes equals reading, is, accessible and available to everyone.
Yeah.
That made more sense. And this is the poster that they made, and I'll show you. Let's see. This is also the initial sketch that we started with. Which, as we all know, is the bookworm. Very, intellectual concept here. But this is the initial sketch that we started with. And then throughout the stream, it turned more into something like this, rather, and then into something like this, and then into something like this. And from this point to now, what I've done is just polishing it up a little bit. So usually this might be exactly where I then jump into color. Obviously the book here isn't quite as consistently refined, but in terms of the worm itself, this is kind of like good enough for the kind of coloring that I start with at the moment. But for the sake of the stream and for our lovely people watching at home, what I have done, let's see, is just refine it a little bit more. So now we have clear lines, and also in the template that I'll be sharing after this stream, you'll also have access to these lines that are a little bit easier to understand than the previous ones, perhaps.
And you mean the lines like the worm lines, like the outlines of the wormy?
Yeah, so the outlines of the worm, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it clearer.
Nice.
The outlines of the worm, and then also the letters as well, which are now based on actual typography and not just sketches, which I can actually show you how I did. So what I did is I picked a font that I liked and that matched with what we were doing, and then I made it an outline, or rather I made it a pixel, so bitmap, and then kind of used it to lay out and give myself a bit of a guide of how I wanted the letters to kind of sit, and for them also to be the correct scale and sort of proportional and actually, well designed, as opposed to my initial scribbles. And this is the technique that I that I realized also Sophie Eleanor uses, where you have the actual font as a base template, and maybe you tweak it a little bit from that point on.
Right.
But you sort of you begin with I guess the rules, and then you break the rules in the sense of you have something very well made, and then you just have fun with it. Which is good. Kind of what my process is. So this is Biosans. The Foundry is escaping me at the moment, but Biosans can recommend.
Okay.
And the typeface that I use for everything else is, I believe, Fat Tony or something like that. Funny Fat. Yes.
Let's just call it Fat Tony because that's a cool name.
Yeah, I can double check that later. I don't want to besmirch Fat Tony's name. But let's see. Oh, also, I experimented a little bit with different typefaces. So this one is Chub. Which, so really playful, sort of a bit more funky typefaces for this one. And that's kind of the aesthetic and the vibe that I've been in lately, in terms of just creating really playful and fun stuff, as opposed to the more serious things that I've created in the past.
Very serious. Did you find it when you were experimenting with the type? Did you find that book one, like, while it matches aesthetically, it's a bit hard to kind of get the worm head to kind of fit through the center? Because
absolutely,
I feel like that would be much more challenging than this, like, much more kind of open, like the big negative space in the middle.
And actually, what I will show, if I can make it show up, is the letter placement, what it looks like with the typography. Just do can I? Okay, can't. Actually, if I do, yeah, there you can see it.
Right.
So you can see that with the B, the darker B is the font B, and then what I've done is I've messed with it a little bit so that it works for my purpose, and also makes it a little bit more unique. But roughly everything else is the same, or I've just changed the scale of it, and things like that. So starting with a very solid and legible foundation, and then you can kind of have fun with it after the fact.
That's really cool. A lot of people loving our little worm buddy. Do we have a name for the worm?
That's what I was thinking yesterday, actually. I would love for the chat to name our little worm buddy. She, her, they, them, he, him. Let us know your suggestions. And then maybe we'll definitely, it'll have a name by the end of the stream, I hope.
I like it.
But speaking of this stream, oh yeah, what are the suggestions? I'm gonna quickly look.
I like Squish.
Oh, Squish. Very onomatopoeic or peak?
Yeah.
I don't know. One of those. But just to remind everyone watching as well, if I'm looking this way, I'm looking at the chat because I have the chat on a different laptop. So let's see, suggestions. Squish, yes. Bobet or Bobbit? Oh, Bobbit. I like Bobbit. That's cute. Wilberforce worm. Bobbit, Wilberforce. Ooh.
I like how you guys are like mashing up.
Yes, I love the collaboration. Amazing.
Since you have chat open, you can see Sophie Eleanor trying to find a typeface that adequately supports your little wormy is a ridiculous and excellent problem to have. And I reckon you nailed it. Yeah, that's a very fun problem to have. Good times.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think really if there was one word that I would use to explain at least this project and really my work lately, is just fun. It doesn't have to be perfect. I've definitely, committed some typography crimes with the B, probably. But it looks fun and funky, so who cares? Big type, don't come after me, please. But type is not the theme for today. It is color. So I thought before I show you the color blocking that I've done on this illustration, just so we can be mindful of time, how about I explain a couple of the ways that I pick colors? How does that sound?
That sounds awesome. I just got to give a quick shout out to Kendall for Page. That's brilliant. Good stuff.
Very good stuff, Kendall. That is on a whole other level.
Well done.
Goodness me. Very well done. Just amazing. All right, so color. I use a lot of both common and uncommon ways to find color. Of course, one of the main methods that I use is Adobe Color. So here you can see, I'm going to zoom out so you can see better. Some palettes that I've made. You'll see that, for example, in the middle, roughly, you'll have Femme Glow or Femme Glow, and you can see that they're quite similar. And that is really just Adobe Color giving me sort of vibrant and less vibrant options when I make the palette. So it's really sort of remixes of the same initial colors. But lots of different ones here, and kind of all giving off a very different vibe, which as we go through some more of my ways of finding color is quite accurate. So without further ado, let's see if I have any more in this document. I do not. Let's move on to the palette that I'm kind of my master palette, so to speak, that I'm using right now. And there's a prop for later in the stream that just fell down, but it's okay.
I was wondering what was going on over there.
Yeah. So this is my lemonade palette that I've called it, because it just lemonade feels like the right word for this. So this is a collection of images. As you can see, I've also looked at other artworks and things like that, just to kind of develop a sense of, okay, bright, happy and exciting, but also, you know, quite contrasting colors is kind of the what I was going for in this palette. So this is really just color picking from screenshots, which is something that I do on occasion. So for example, an image like this, amazing, love it. Wish I would have this as a print. Just fantastic. But the colors in here and also the shapes in here really, you know, speak something into my brain. And that is the most articulate way that I can describe how that works.
So this is like a lot of colors, right? Like
this is a lot of colors,
okay.
Yes. And you'll see that kind of being the trend for me. What I also do sometimes is I have a photo. This is, for example, a leaf that I thought was absolutely gorgeous. And then I will color pick colors from there. And sort of based on what the image is, I might sort of have in my mind, okay, these colors are for something that would fit alongside this image. So these are quite, you know, I'm going to say like autumnal, but sort of very earthy and warm tones. So that's kind of, okay, if I have a piece in mind and I remember, oh, that leaf from a couple of weeks ago, then maybe that's where I'll sort of start looking at color.
Yeah. Cool.
And let's see, I have a couple of examples here that kind of show my process, but this is, I think, the last one that I'll show for now. And this is some photos that I have on my phone. So really just going through my camera roll and just seeing what kinds of colors I can find there. And I think this one is actually the palette that I made with these. I might have actually done a stream on my account, so not an official Adobe one, such as this one. But I find just having images and picking out colors to be really therapeutic. So from these photos, we get all these colors.
Wow, it's a lot.
And yeah, it's amazing, right? Because once you know, if you would just see the color individually themselves, and then sort of wonder like, oh, what kind of photo, where in the world would these come from? Then you're often quite surprised where, oh, it's from a beach, or it's from a seashell, or it's from let's see, it's from a Matchbox car case, right, for example.
Yeah.
So just color comes from everywhere and anywhere. And
it's really cool. They're like three very different like approaches to color. But it's quite nice. It seems like as even when you're not working on a project, as you go along, like finding that leaf or like taking photos on your phone or something, you can kind of slowly over time, you're building up this like library or repository of memories around color, so that when you do go to a project, you're like, I want that leaf color, and let's go back a couple of weeks to when I save those colors down, and then off you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very much in my personality to collect things, and color has been one of my latest joys. But surrounding me here are some of the things that I've either made or collected because, you know, the colors are nice. So for example, we have this little Matchbox car.
Cool.
And you'll see that I've updated my nails because I knew my hands would be close up for today. So they're very
attention
colorful.
to detail.
You know, just designer through and through. Or similarly, we have, let's see what else. This is something that I worked on yesterday. Just a little piece of cardboard that is squiggly and fun. I'm really using that and just a variety of practices to experiment and have fun with color.
Nice.
And yeah, just really what feels intuitive is really the way that I would explain my creative process, which I know doesn't give people much to go on, but hopefully after this stream you can kind of understand maybe a little bit more how my mind works when it comes to color. Which is, you know, who knows. But speaking of and looking at all the colors that we've looked at, I created a simplified palette. So really the brief that I gave to myself for this palette is the rainbow, but, you know, on brand, which who knows what that means, but apparently it's this.
Okay.
So it's the colors of the rainbow, but then I've just gone in and maybe tweaked them to be a little bit more pastel. For example, in the rainbow, like in the rainbow flag, for example, the pride flag, you have purple. No, you don't. You have blue, rather, I should say. But it's not exactly this blue. It's more of an ultramarine blue.
Right.
So, you know, taking, I guess, common colors, but then tweaking them to, you know, go into uncommon territory is what I like to do.
Nice.
I think just quickly looking at the chat. Yes, okay, so choosing colors can be really overwhelming, which is why I generally, if I don't know where to start, I have a black background and just one other color. And then based on that, it's okay, what if I feel like, oh, it needs a little bit more, I might then add a second color. So for example, let's see. No, we won't do that. But essentially, you know, you have the black background and it's simple. Or really, you know, with this t-shirt and the background here, the t-shirt allows for the colors in the background to sort of shine through. And so by just picking one other color, it kind of sort of propels the process of, okay, maybe what colors goes with this color, and then it kind of snowballs from there. So I don't usually have a sort of designated palette always to begin with. It's kind of whatever is closest to me, like, oh, maybe there's a red that I used just before, or I've been seeing or thinking a lot about orange. So that's where I start, but that isn't necessarily where I end up.
Nice.
But to actually go into color and drawing, what I did in the meantime, in between this previous stream and today, is I actually went in a little sneakily and I color blocked this illustration. So there we go. So as a baseline, you know, worms are pink, or they're, you know, pale, or like the comic version, I guess, of worms are usually pink.
Right.
In real life, they're a little bit different, but this is kind of where the magical realism sort of comes into play, where I think of what is the usual color of this item thing, and then see if I can have a little bit of fun with it. So here
Speaking
we have
of fun, looks like he's.
Oh, yeah?
They have some glasses. A little bookworm.
Oh, yes, they do. I think it was you or maybe someone in the chat that mentioned it in passing last stream. And so I had to do it. I couldn't not do it. But again, like these glasses could be any color. So these are just really sort of version 1 colors. Yep. And of course, if you have any favorite colors, I'd love to see if I could incorporate those as well.
Yeah, so will you do multiple versions or just kind of keep the same one and keep changing it till you think it's right, or will you come up with like a couple of different versions?
Yeah, it depends. Since it depends is really my answer to everything, because my process is so much that it's whatever I feel like, which can be great, but also when I don't know what I want, what I then rely on is, okay, what does my previous piece look like? But generally, if I'm making something, I will make several, different iterations and just see which one I like, and usually find ways to post different ones. But let's see. So for today, I'll just add in some shadows that I prepared earlier. This is the color blocked version, sort of ground zero, so to speak, of where I will go with the piece. So what I will actually do is group these together and duplicate and hide that, and then duplicate it again. And we can move this to the side. We have version 1. Oh, the glasses. Oh no. I forgot to group the glasses. Let's see. There we go. I think. Actually, I'll do that again. Sorry about this, folks. Just too excited. Okay. Glasses in there. There we go. All right, so now you can see we've got a color blocked version as a start, and going into this one, let's see if we can make it even a little bit more exciting. So one thing that I missed to do before the stream is add the little cartoonish sort of, and now I go from mouse to stylus, is adding kind of the stripes that you see in worms, or at least that I remember seeing in worms. So what we do, it's a massive brush, we don't want it that big, is, why is that not showing up? So generally these past few days and weeks I've been working in fresco, partly because it's something that I can really do from anywhere, and the workflow that I have in fresco is slightly different to Photoshop, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm not quite as quick. But essentially what I'm doing here is very roughly putting in the colored lines, just generally where I want them to go. And what I will do in a minute is just make a clipping mask, and then I won't have to worry about cleaning up the edges or anything like that. And this is really how I sort of rapid prototype colors so quickly, because when you just have a clipping mask, you don't have to worry about coloring outside of the lines, which is something that I do quite often, I'll admit. But sometimes it's nice to, let's see, there we go, to not have to do that. I like that. Yes, I do. So something that really helps me here with sort of going quick with this kind of style is that I do have the thick outline. So when I'm erasing out color, I don't have to, go in and make it pixel perfect, because the black outline around it will sort of give me that little bit of
it's a little bit of a buffer, right?
Buffer, that's the word. Buffer to kind of get it looking as clean as possible. But of course it changes from piece to piece. Sometimes I want, like for the effect, it could be that I really like sort of showing kind of as if it were screen printed, for example, that I can kind of show that, oh, that isn't quite lined up with the lines and it has a little bit more character. So really, as I go through in coloring my pieces, or just any sketch or illustration, my main focus is kind of what feels the most natural, but also just starting really is the main focus, and then I can always make a new layer, copy and paste, and try out a different technique, which is actually what we're going to do a little bit later, because this way of coloring and sort of finishing a piece is just one of the ways that I currently, or one of the styles rather, that I kind of use at the moment. And so after we finish this, I'm going to show some example pieces and then show you how I kind of do special effects but with color.
Very cool. And I'm just checking in with chat. Michael Murphy, welcome to the stream. He said, Johanna, what's my name? And then later he said, tell Johanna that Michael says he did the Rihanna thing with her name in chat. So I assume you know what that is.
I do unfortunately know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
And Michael knows my feelings about this little game that he likes to play, which is, the amazing and wonderful Rihanna has a song which is like something what's my name, and the sort of the sound of that could be mistaken for Johanna. And I'm not one to be so quick to besmirch the wonderful name of Rihanna, so I'm not much of a fan of this little name association. But let's see. So I've pretty much got the color. I'm gonna make it a little bit more subtle where I want it.
And you're just changing the transparency there to
exactly. Oh, just changing the opacity.
Opacity.
Yeah. And sort of opacity and layer mode is kind of my go-to technique when it comes to quickly adjusting color, because what I'll do is really, even if I start with one or two colors, just doing layer adjustment sort of like this, as you can see, got a bit of party going on this worm. It changes the piece dramatically without me having to draw anything, which can be a bit of a slippery slope, because it's very fun to just play around with the different effects, and you can kind of get stuck doing that forever. So I try not to do it too much. But this is essentially sort of version or style 1 that I might do,
right?
Where it's quite simple, and there's sort of no realism to it, really. But what I thought I would do now is show you, put that to the side.
And just if anyone has any questions, we're about halfway through, so let us know in chat. Jessica has a question for you, Joe. Are you using a tablet now? Did you switch from mouse to tablet?
Yes, so I'm using Wacom Intuos Pro. Or just Wacom Intuos. I don't remember at this stage. It's quite old. That I actually won at a event, which was Adobe Max 2019.
Did you? I didn't know that.
I did. Yeah.
Oh wow!
I thought I'd sneak in that little anecdote as a nice surprise.
I didn't know that. How did you win a Wacom? That's a nice prize.
I think I entered the competition. I maybe for maybe like a 25 word sort of blurb of what I would do with it. Just the kind of standard sort of competition, but it's also possible that it was just more of a lottery thing, and I was just extremely lucky, and I've kind of used it ever since. It's cool. Pre-iPad, it's definitely my drawing surface of choice, because I started out with a Wacom Bamboo, which is the grey sort of entry-level
kind of entry-level one, yeah.
Exactly, and that doesn't have a screen on it, and that then kind of became just my preferred way of drawing with it. But being mindful of time, I'm going to quickly show you, let's see, this is how I create kind of special effects, but with color. So here you can see some cauldrons that I've done. And
cauldrons.
Anyway. Nice one. And here, it's using multiply, it's using color dodge, but also using just a variety of different funky colors to kind of get the vibe that this is, magic happening.
I love that middle one. Like, that's like pure witchery. Like, the colors. Like, it's not what you would expect. Like in a, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons or high fantasy or something, but the contrast of the wacky colors, like the really bright like yellows and oranges and stuff, are like really nice.
Yeah, I was definitely channeling, not challenging, sort of Inside Out or like a Disney Pixar sort of interpretation of magic, like stylistic magic, is really how I would actually kind of explain my color process in general.
Cool.
So let's then, with that in mind, let's go into this bookmark and see what we can do. Okay, so first point is I like to give a little more texture to the background. So looking here on my brushes, let's do Carbonara New, which is in Kyle's drawing box. And this one is quite a realistic brush. So I'll show it outside of the bookmark first. It's similar to the one that we've been using, but it has even more texture.
That's a nice brush.
To it, and I really like it because it again brings back a little bit of the more realistic or sort of faux realistic feel to my work. So let's then just start drawing some lines.
Let's do it.
And of course we put an adjustment layer on this to make it a bit more interesting, or actually so we can see what we're doing, because at the moment I'm just using the exact same color as the background. So how about we do...
That's cool. Just checking with chat. So Kendall's saying went from Cintiq to Bamboo to Cintiq again. Oh, okay, because your old Cintiq died. Interesting. I wonder how that was going back to kind of Bamboo, because it is entry level. Did you feel like it wasn't as good because it is entry level? Maybe it's a bit smaller, doesn't have the screen on it. Often find that's the case. Like when you have something like expensive tech, like if you have a really fast computer at work or something, and then a really slow one at home, it's quite hard to work at home because it's so slow. Like it just feels like it takes longer.
Absolutely.
Same thing if you have like a really fancy camera and you're trying to take take a photo and you didn't bring it, and then you're taking photos on your phone, you're like, oh, I wish I had my good camera.
It's like, oh no, what's the point? But as I've said, I think in the chat before, and I think it holds true, is the best piece of equipment is the one that you have. So yes, it's nice to have fancy camera or a fancy tablet, but ultimately at the end of the day, the best tool is whichever one that you have on hand, because that's the one that you're going to be able to learn from, and sort of develop your taste, your style, your technique, and also that'll inform what tablet perhaps or what medium you like to work in the future. So that's the daily serving of cheese for the stream, I think.
Nice.
So what I'm doing right now is really just thinking of, okay, what kind of stuff have I done in the past and will that work here? So it's really basically relying on my sort of stock standard bag of tricks, essentially, and trying to see if they work, maybe reinvent them a little bit. But ultimately, just have a good time.
Yeah, so making like a sketchy kind of border around it now.
Exactly. Because what I used to do a lot, and don't think I have the work open, but really is creating sort of individual framed pieces with the sketches. Because what I usually end up drawing is color burn. Yes, is actually quite simple stuff. So it's a leaf, or it's a flower, or a worm, and sort of the way for me to make that interesting is to do things like adding a fancy border around it, or just doing funky colors that kind of stand out. And actually, let's see, I think I have an example of that. Not there, that was the previous one, but I have here, for example. So I start out with just traditionally with a sketch, whether that is with paint or with pencil, then take a very lazy photo of it, pop it inside the Fresco or Photoshop, do the line work, and then if I feel like it, I'll go further and go into color.
Do you want to zoom in on these a little bit, because you have quite a big screen?
Yes,
It'd be good to zoom in on maybe the colored ones.
Yeah, so starting here, where you can see the texture that I will kind of use to inform how I color it. And then here, I believe is with the exact same brush that we've been using, the Carbonara. And then what I'll do is I'll go in and sort of roughly color and give effect. So really this I don't know, is a parsnip potentially, or a beetroot. It's a very lilac beetroot. Is kind of indicative of what our worm today is going to look like.
Cool.
In the end, because I know we are slowly running out of time, but I believe in us. We can do it.
We can do it.
Let's see, what next? So obviously the challenge with adding color, or really making what you're doing more complex, is there's the possibility that you'll add too much. And that just really complicates what you're doing, and you kind of lose the essence, or like you lose the initial effect of what you were trying to achieve. So right now, this is kind of just on the edge of too much, where I'm trying to indicate that maybe there's like grass in the background, but I don't know, it might be too much, but I'm gonna persevere and see a little bit longer, maybe adding some tiny blades, no, don't like that. But the great thing is, and sort of the slightly do as I say, not as I do, is you can just add a new layer and try again, and don't have to necessarily name all these layers, because at the end of the day, what I'll do is I'll probably merge a couple of them, and then it won't matter what they're called. So let's see. Do we have any more suggestions for names on this one?
No, we kind of moved on from names. We got quite a few before. There were lots of really good names actually, but I think Page just kind of took over for sheer cleverness. Here we go. Squish, Bobbit, Wilberforce Worm, Bobbit Wilberforce, Wendell Reedmeister III, Squirm. I think Squirm's really good. That's quite good. That's better than my Squish. Page, of course. Augustus.
Augustus Squirm.
Augustus Squirm. Page Wormer. Roberta Page. I just love how everyone kind of riffed off each other in that. Going to end up with like a hyphenated name, like someone from the eastern suburbs. Very cool. Yeah. You can't beat Page.
You can't beat. I think maybe Augustus Page Squirm.
Squirm.
Yeah, that's going to be their name. Excellent. And so what you can see that I'm doing here really is just adding a bit of that funky texture to it. And sometimes, you know, as I was saying before, I'll do it, I'll try it out, see how it works, and sometimes it doesn't work, and that's totally fine. Part of the reason why I love, or where I really enjoy working digitally, is I can just do a new layer, or I can Control Z, and then the balance is restored. But equally, that's also what makes, you know, traditional work so interesting, because you only got one shot, kind of, depending on what tools you use, because it's a bit of a hassle to erase your work if you're working with oils or something like that. But something that I actually have started to implement in my digital work is just doing everything on the one layer. So really, the difference for me between working digitally or working traditionally is kind of just whatever is available, because in terms of workflow, I kind of adapted, so it's pretty much the same, which I think has really helped in me not leaning too much on I guess the benefits of one way of creating rather than the other. So not becoming too dependent on the fact that I can just press Control Z, and you know, start again, and that I actually have to make the effort of okay, how am I going to fix this, which, you know, can be, excuse me, just painting over what I've done, or just starting from scratch. So either of those are kind of how I try to adapt and sort of make everything the same. Let's see.
This is cool. I'll let you know we've got a little bit less than 10 minutes left, so just to...
A little bit less. Excellent.
Let you know.
See, this is really the fun part for me, because generally, like, the lines and the shapes that I use in my work are quite simple, which means that I can really go all out when it comes to goodness me, that was a microphone. When it comes to the color or any sort of special effects that I add. So what I'll usually do, what I've done pretty often is when I do something that's a little bit more, I guess, graphic and realistic, or realistic, I should say, is that I put the outline layers to multiply, and then basically just color pick the colors within the piece that I'm working on. Do I have touch? No, I don't have touch on. And then use that to create the outlines. So it's an easy way of, I've got the guide of the line work that I've already made, but then I can make it seem even more painterly by just covering over the lines in sort of the deepest or the most contrasting color that I have in my palette already. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of see how that makes sense.
Yeah.
But this really is kind of peak. What my process is really messing about and having fun with what I have and sort of what I have access to, what is in my near vicinity, in terms of where I get my colors from or where I get inspiration in terms of shapes and really the sense of I kind of use the button smashing strategy for a lot of my work, where before I kind of establish my go-to sort of 3 or 4 layer adjustments, which is multiply, overlay, soft light, lighten, and maybe sometimes color dodge.
Are they some of your favorites?
Yeah, those are some of my favorites. But I do like to cycle through them each time to see if I can find something different. Because that's really exciting, and it's always fun to discover something new. Let's see. I'm going to try to cycle through this a little bit quickly, so it is going to look a little bit more rushed, but or rough, I should say. But ultimately, this is kind of the general idea. So color picking then because you've done all these amazing adjustment layers and everything, you now have kind of the master palette, really, sort of with like the grand spectrum, because doing the adjustments and the multiply and everything, you will discover new colors that you could not have thought of yourself. And so really taking advantage of the tool that you're working with as much as possible, which is that you're working together with Photoshop as opposed to you just using Photoshop to do your bidding, and it's really just about like, okay, what can we stumble upon today?
Yeah, that's very cool.
Which is just fun.
Yeah, I'm loving all these textures. Like, it's not busy, but there's a lot more going on, like with the border and like the little bits of grass. I assume that's kind of grass, or that's how I interpret it anyway.
Good. You interpreted correctly.
Oh, good. And then even just the shadow, like adding a little bit of extra depth to it, is really nice.
Yeah, and really this is, after all these years, not that many, kind of where I've found my process, or like I guess my style, to kind of have landed where it starts out like MVP is quite simple, and
you're saying MVP, like minimum viable product?
Yes.
Cool. I just wanted to be clear about that. Cool.
So yeah, like I basically create the MVP, or the like sort of the shippable version, or like if you would look at this and wonder what it is. Does it look like what it's supposed to be? Does it have like the key elements that you would expect in a worm or whatever it is that I'm drawing? And sometimes it can be like, okay, does it, you know, resemble just enough what I guess I perceive at the time to be a worm, or, you know, does it sort of feel, does it have the essence of what it's supposed to be? And then that's kind of, okay, it has that? Okay, cool. I can leave it for now, maybe work on something else or focus on something else. But like, I know that at the very least, it is doing what it is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of become my way of dealing with like, oh, is it done? Is it not done?
A little bit of like product design thinking.
Yeah, a little bit, like, because I know that, and it's indicative of that we're just about out of time. I can do this, you know, for hours almost, because it really is just like, oh, what about this? And what about this? But I won't, because we'll run out of time. But you know, it is really just having fun with it. That is sort of the key to my practice. And you can see just as the result here, yes, there's maybe more blending that I will do, but ultimately you can't deny that these two are different.
Right.
And so for the sake of, you know, the stream and for showing different techniques, this is what you can do. And yeah, I think with 3 minutes to go or something like that, might be good to end it here.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. But man, gotta get. Is this your mum again, Kendall, or is this you? We're talking about MVP, and she's written most valuable page. So you're just all over it. Very clever. I love it. Yeah, thank you, Paige. Paige has been amazing. That's like, yeah. Very impressed by the naming of all of you today. And also the support that Johanna has in chat. You guys are excellent. Like lots of positive vibes here. It's been great to hang out and just kind of see everyone supporting you. All these other fantastic artists and creatives and streamers and stuff like that. So that's been very cool, and I've had a great time. Oh, Paige, you've written it up the top. That's great. That's really cool to see two completely different techniques, and spend some time with you and I on stream. It's been a great time.
Yeah, it's been a little change of pace for me, but very, very exciting.
Yeah, exactly. But that'll do us for us today. Thank you, everybody. Should give a shout out to Adobe Max. You'll probably get sick of me mentioning it over the next couple of weeks, but it's very exciting and it's happening. So make sure you jump over there and register. There's tons and tons and tons of really exciting tutorials and inspirational speakers and things like that. There'll be lots of surprises as well. So jump on over there. We're very excited about it, working behind the scenes on it. And thank you again, Joe.
Thank you for having me. And of course, everyone tune in next week for more page turning content.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.